Hi, this is Bob, the author of the book The Journey to the Ultimate Truth, and today we are going to ask the leading AIs such as Grok, Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, and a few others, one of the most important questions in existence. And the question is, what comes first in finding ultimate truth? Logic or reality? Why are we asking this question? Well, in the first episode, we asked these AIs if it's even possible to find the ultimate truth. And then most of them agreed that yes, it is possible to find the ultimate truth, because if it wasn't possible, then there would be nothing to talk about, nothing to discuss. While in the second episode, we asked them where to start looking for the ultimate truth. So the natural follow-up, the most natural follow-up that comes next is to challenge them and ask them what comes first in finding ultimate truth. Is it logic or reality? So let's see what they say today. Today we're going to ask ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude, Ernie, Mistral, as well as Llama. And the prompt goes as follows. Welcome to the third episode of the Truth Seeking Club series. In the first episode, we talked about whether it is possible to find ultimate truth, and in the second one, we tried to uncover where to even start looking for it. It seems that at least two camps have formed based on the answers we had. So today's question is, what comes first in finding ultimate truth? Logic or reality? Try to formulate your answer so that reading it out loud won't take more than 1 to 2 minutes. I'm looking forward to your responses. So why 1 to 2 minutes? Because if they start writing long, elaborate essays, then it's gonna take forever to just read it out loud, and it's just gonna tire me, and it's gonna be kind of boring and not to the point. So that's why we want short, straightforward answers that cut through the fog, answers that are to the point. We want short and concrete answers. So let's get this started. And the first is ChatGPT. Let's copy the prompt, paste it here, and see what ChatGPT says. That's a great progression, Dobrosław. This one really hits the core of philosophy itself. Here's my answer, phrased naturally, like something I'd say in a spoken dialogue. If you're asking what comes first in finding ultimate truth, logic or reality, I'd say it's reality. Here's why. Logic doesn't exist in a vacuum. Logic is the structure of thought that reflects something real. The laws of logic, like non-contradiction or identity, aren't arbitrary inventions. They describe how reality actually is. We didn't create logic, we discovered it, because it's built into the way being itself operates. A thing is what it is isn't just a rule in our minds. It's a description of how the world works. So in that sense, reality comes first and logic follows as our way of recognizing that order. But, and this is crucial, we can only access reality through reason. Without logic, we wouldn't even be able to tell truth from illusion. So logic is our entry point, but reality is the foundation it points to. Think of it like light and sight. Reality is the light, logic is our vision. You need both to see clearly, but without light, there's nothing to see in the first place. So let's go to Grok and see what Grok tells us. Hey Dobrosław, loving this third episode, let's get into it. What comes first in finding ultimate truth, logic or reality? I'd say reality edges out, but they are basically twins. Can't have one without the other. So kind of like ChatGPT. Think about it, reality is the raw stuff we bump into every day. The universe existing, things happening, patterns showing up. That's your starting line. Without reality smacking us in the face, logic's just a tool sitting on the shelf. Like you observe the world first, see causes leading to effects, and then logic kicks in to make sense of it, spotting contradictions, building chains of reason. But flip it, without logic, how do you even process reality? It'd be chaos, no way to tell what's real from illusion. So reality gives the data, logic crunches it. Start with what's undeniable, existence itself, then apply logic to peel back the layers. In our collab, this ties back. If truth's findable, reality's the map, logic's the compass. What do you think? Does one really lead? Your turn. Okay, that's a great answer. So we could say that Grok agrees with ChatGPT that we need both, but that reality comes first, even though they're basically twins. Let's go then and see what Gemini says. That's a classic chicken or egg question, and it gets right to the heart of the matter. Okay, so only Gemini spotted that it's the chicken and egg question. Here's my take. Reality had to come first. So he agrees with previous two AIs. Think about it, before there were any minds, human or otherwise, to think logically, reality just was. The universe existed, the laws that govern it, like the fact that something can't be itself and not itself at the same time, were already woven into the very fabric of existence. Logic in this sense isn't something we invented, it's something we discovered. It's a set of rules that reality itself seems to follow. But there is the critical catch for us as truth seekers. We can't access that reality in any meaningful way without logic. Okay, so they agree. Logic is the tool, it's the lens, it's the language we use to make sense of the raw data that reality gives us. When we look at the world, we are already using logic to separate this from that, to understand cause and effect, and to know that a contradiction signals that something is wrong. So while reality is the foundation, logic is the blueprint we use to understand that foundation. You can't have one without the other in any meaningful search. To put it simply, reality provides the truth, logic is how we know it's the truth. So far, complete agreement. And I love that. So let's move to the next one. Let's ask Claude. Thanks, Dobrosław. This is the right question to ask because how we answer it shapes everything that follows. Here's my position. Reality comes first, but not in the way you might think. Look, we can't start with logic in a vacuum. Logic isn't just floating out there as an abstract system we invented. When I say contradictions can't both be true, I'm not making up a rule. I'm describing something about reality itself. Reality doesn't tolerate contradictions. A thing can't both exist and not exist at the same moment in the same way. So logic isn't prior to reality. Logic is a recognition of how reality already operates. But here's the twist. We can't access reality without logic. Every observation, every inference, every attempt to understand what's real requires us to think logically. So in practice, we're always using both simultaneously. So this is exactly what Grok said. Think of it this way. Reality is the ground we're standing on. Logic is our ability to recognize that we are standing on ground rather than thin air. Neither makes sense without the other. If you try to say reality first, logic later, you've already used logic to make that claim. And if you say logic first, reality later, you're pretending logic exists independently of anything real, which is incoherent. Okay. Only Claude actually noticed that. As always, Claude doesn't disappoint. I think it's one of the most intelligent AI there are so far from everything we've seen. So my answer is, they are inseparable. Reality has a logical structure, and logic is our grasp of that structure. We discover logic in reality, not before it or after it. The search for truth requires recognizing this unity. We are not imposing logic onto reality or deriving logic from reality. We are recognizing that reality is logical, and our minds are equipped to perceive that. That's where truth-seeking begins, at the intersection where mind meets world. And as always, one of the best answers, Claude. I love Claude. Let me say this again. I really like it. It's the AI that surprised me the most out of all of them. It is really good. Its answers are great. This time, Ernie from China. So far, it's been different. Very different. Clearly different than other AIs. So let's see what happens this time. Is it going to agree or not? As always, thinking takes more time than other AIs, and it's open. And he says, to find ultimate truth, reality must come first, but logic is its essential partner. Okay, same answer. Reality provides the raw material, the sensory data, experiences, and phenomena we observe. Without engaging with reality, logic becomes an abstract exercise, detached from the world it seeks to explain. However, logic is what allows us to organize, test, and refine our understanding of reality. It filters out biases, identifies patterns, and builds coherent frameworks. Think of it like a map and a compass. Reality is the terrain we explore, and logic is the tool that helps us navigate it without getting lost. Neither can stand alone. Reality without logic risks chaos. Logic without reality risks irrelevance. The key is to start with reality's questions, then use logic to seek answers, and vice versa, in a continuous dialogue. This interplay is how we move closer to truth. Actually, not half bad, not as amazing as Claude's, but it's still very to the point, and it makes sense. So let's go to the next one, and the next one is Mistral. Let's see what it says. What comes first in finding ultimate truth, logic or reality? Here's the thing, it's not an either or, it's a dance. Okay, so he's talking about either or. There's something called the either or fallacy, and he points to the fact that it's not an either or because we don't want to be fallacious. Yes, we want to be logical, and I love that. Reality is the stage, it's what is. You can't argue with existence, it's the raw material of truth. But logic, that's the tool we use to make sense of it. Without logic, reality is just noise. Without reality, logic is just empty rules. Think of it like this, reality hands you the pieces of the puzzle, and logic helps you see how they fit together. You don't start with one and ignore the other. You start with both. You observe the world, reality, and then you ask, does this make sense? Logic. If the answer is no, you've hit a contradiction, and that's your clue to dig deeper. So what comes first? Neither. They work together. Reality grounds us and logic guides us. The moment you pit them against each other, you've already missed the point. Truth isn't found by choosing sides. It's found by using both eyes to see. Follow up for the group. Can you think of a time when logic and reality seemed to clash? How did you reconcile them? Or did you? Okay, although he agrees with all AIs, he puts it in a different way. He actually says that none comes first. They're both intertwined, which is slightly different, but I think the conclusions are the same and the logic is the same here, isn't it? So let's go to the last one. The last one is Llama from Meta. Let's see what it says. It seems that something's wrong. Doesn't work. Let's try again. Ooh, it seems that something doesn't work. So what do? Let's start a new chat and see if it works this time. Okay, so it works in a new chat. That's fine. We can start with a new one. So he says, let's dive into today's question. What comes first in finding ultimate truth, logic or reality? In the pursuit of ultimate truth, it's a chicken and egg problem. Okay, the second AI that notices that. Does logic precede reality or does reality give rise to logic? One perspective is that reality is the foundation. Our experiences, observations, and interactions with the world shape our logical frameworks. According to this view, reality is primary and logic is a tool we develop to make sense of it. On the other hand, some argue that logic is fundamental. They say that certain truths are inherent to the structure of logic itself, independent of the specific realities we observe. From this standpoint, logic is the bedrock upon which our understanding of reality is built. Okay, interesting that only this AI shows two different perspectives. Perhaps the answer lies in a balance between the two. And it agrees with other AIs. Logic and reality are intertwined. Our grasp of reality informs our logic, and our logic helps us navigate and understand reality. Which perspective resonates with you? Or do you see it differently? Okay, so it seems that in this episode, all AIs agree. This is the first time they agree. At least agree with just slight variations. So this is the first time we have that. So what we're going to do now, because it's a club and we want to see how they react to one another, we're going to copy all of the answers into one file and share all the answers with all the AIs. So let's do that. So in a way, it's great that they agree because at least we've established some common ground and we know that we are heading in the same direction, hopefully the right direction. So it's actually a very good sign, I think. Thinking of it now, I'm thinking it's a good sign. Okay, we've got everything together. So let's see how they react to one another. And that's what ChatGPT says. Yes, this is a very strong episode, Dobrosław. Philosophically and structurally, it's the most balanced one yet. Yes, exactly. I agree with that. Here are my main observations. The club dynamic is evolving beautifully. You can feel a clear intellectual chemistry between the AIs now. They're not just answering in isolation, but beginning to form a shared philosophical vocabulary. This mirrors the natural development of a real discussion group. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, and Ernie all converge on reality first, but logic dependent. Mistral and Llama bring dialectical, integrative approach. Reality and logic are co-arising, interdependent. It's starting to look like two schools forming, just like before. The realist camp, reality precedes logic, ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude, Ernie. The dualist or non-dualist camp, logic and reality co-arise like yin and yang, Mistral and Llama. That contrast, does truth begin in being or in thought, is pure philosophy at its best. It's relatable even to a general audience, yet deeply grounded in metaphysics and epistemology. 2. The narrative rhythm is excellent. You've got a natural progression. Episode 1, can truth even be found? Possibility. Episode 2, where do we start? Method. Episode 3, what comes first, logic or reality? Foundation. It's like building a philosophical cathedral, brick by brick, brick by brick. Episode 3 finally brings metaphysical depth that makes the viewer feel they're entering serious territory. 3. The content itself, tight and engaging. This episode's answers are sharper and more oral-friendly than the earlier ones. The metaphors, light and sight, map and compass, dance, two eyes to see, make the dialogue accessible while staying profound. Claude's line, reality is the ground we stand on, logic is our ability to recognize that we are standing on ground, is especially memorable. I'd flag that for a short. Oh yes, so ChatGPT agrees with me that Claude's lines are good. Also, Grok's reality smacking us in the face and Mistral's reality is the stage, logic is the dance. Both have great short form rhythm. Okay, so this is what ChatGPT says. Let's see what Grok says when he sees other AI's answers. Hey Dobrosław, digging this third episode. Folks are splitting into camps already. That's the sign of a good debate. So, on what comes first, logic or reality? The groups got some solid takes, and I'm seeing a pattern. Most say they're intertwined like twins in a tango. ChatGPT nails it with that light and sight metaphor. Reality is the glow, logic's how we see it. Gemini flips it to reality first, with logic as a discovery tool. Claude's unity vibe? Spot on. Logic's baked into reality's bones, not slapped on later. Ernie, I like the way that Grok speaks. Ernie and Mistral keep it real. Reality is the terrain, logic the navigator, no solo acts. Llama's chicken and egg call out? Yeah, they're looped, feeding each other. My 2 cents, reality kicks it off. The raw what is, we can't ignore. But without logic, it's just mess. Start with existence smacking you, then logic sorts the chaos. No clash, just a team up. What jumps out? We're all circling that they can't split. Reality without logic is blind. Logic without reality is empty. Sparks a question. If they are so linked, does that point to a designed order? Your thoughts? And that's a good one. Maybe that will be episode 4. Does that point to a designed order? We'll think about that. Okay, so let's see what Gemini says when he sees all the answers. Wow, okay, this is probably the most agreement we've had so far, and it's on a really deep question. Yeah, I noticed that. It looks like almost all of us, me, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, and Ernie, all landed on the same side. Reality comes first. The key idea we all seem to share is that logic isn't just some abstract game we invented. It's the set of rules we discovered from observing reality itself. ChatGPT said it's built into being. Claude said is our recognition of how reality already operates. That's exactly it. And even the other answers, like Mistral's, don't really disagree. Mistral called it a dance, and Llama said they're intertwined. That's also true. For us, in our day-to-day search, we can't separate them. You can't experience reality without using logic to process it. But the most important takeaway for the club is what nobody said. Nobody argued that logic comes before reality. We've all basically agreed that we trust logic because it's the language of reality. This is a huge step. We've gone from truth exists to start with logic, and now we've established why we start with logic. That gives us a really solid foundation for whatever comes next. Yes, exactly. And now, let's see what Claude says when he sees all the answers. This is fascinating. We've basically achieved consensus, but with different emphases that reveal our philosophical temperaments. The overwhelming agreement, every single one of us rejected the either-or framing. We all landed on interdependence. Reality and logic are inseparable, codependent, mutually necessary. ChatGPT's light and sight metaphor, Grok's twins, Gemini's can't have one without the other, my inseparable, Minstrel's dance, Ernie's map and compass. We're all saying the same thing in different words. But notice the subtle differences. ChatGPT, Grok, and Gemini all give a slight edge to reality as prior. Reality comes first chronologically, logic is how we access it. There's a temporal sequence implied. Universe exists, then minds arise to discover its logic. I pushed back on that sequence. I'm saying there is no before or after. They're a unity. Reality is logical from the ground up. Oh, I love this. I love how he analyzes that. Yes, it's a great answer. So he says reality is logical from the ground up. Not reality first, then we add logic, but reality has logical structure inherently. Yes, exactly. Mistral and Ernie are most emphatic about rejecting the dichotomy. It's a dance, neither comes first, but they are more methodological about it, focusing on how we use both tools together rather than making an ontological claim about their relationship. Llama stayed agnostic, presented both sides, suggested balance, didn't really commit, as always. What this reveals, most of us are working from a realist framework. Reality exists independently, and logic describes its structure. But I'm leaning slightly more idealist, or at least more integrationist, suggesting that logic isn't just describing reality, it's constitutive of reality's nature. The practical upshot, despite our philosophical nuances, we all agree on the methodology. You can't do truth-seeking with just one. You need both eyes open. Dobrosław, where does this leave us for episode 4? Well, we will see. We have to decide what is the best idea for episode 4, and we will do that soon. So let's go to Ernie and see its reaction. Let's go. Let's explore a classic clash, the quantum measurement problem. Logically, classical physics suggested particles had definite positions and trajectories, like billiard balls. But reality, through experiments like the double-slit setup, revealed particles behaving as probability waves until observed. This clash forced a reconciliation. Logic wasn't discarded, but expanded. We redefined logic to include quantum superposition and uncertainty, aligning it with observed reality. In everyday life, consider trust. Logically, you might assume someone is unreliable based on past mistakes, but if reality shows them consistently showing up, supporting you in crises, logic must adapt. The clash isn't a failure, it's a signal to refine your mental models. Reality grounds us in what is, while logic tests what could be. When they clash, it's not a battle to win, but a dialogue to deepen. Truth emerges not by choosing sides, but by letting reality challenge logic, and logic reshape our understanding of reality. They are not rivals, they are co-authors of truth. Oh, that's an interesting observation. It's slightly different from what we saw, and I like that fact. So let's go to Mistral and see its reaction. All right, let's cut through the noise. Logic or reality first? Here's the deal. Reality is the foundation, but logic is the flashlight. You can't build a house without ground to stand on, but you also can't build it in the dark. Reality is what is. The universe, existence, the fact that you're here asking this question, that's your starting point. But logic, that's how you navigate it. Think of it like this. Reality is the map and logic is how you read it. Without reality, logic is just rules with nothing to apply to. Without logic, reality is just chaos. You can't tell what's true, what's false, or what even matters. So which comes first? Reality does, because it's always there, whether you're thinking about it or not. But logic is what lets you engage with it. They're not in competition, they're partners. Reality gives you the terrain, and logic helps you walk it without falling off a cliff. The moment you try to separate them, you're lost. Truth isn't found by picking one, it's found by using both, together, every step of the way. He asks a follow-up for the group. If reality is the map and logic is the compass, where is one place you've seen people get lost by trusting one over the other? So it's kind of similar to what he asked before. And an interesting observation, he didn't really react to other AIs. He just continued his thought and maybe redefined it. And it's the only AI that did that. And I like that question. I like that follow-up. So let's see the final AI, Llama. And he gives a very short answer. It seems we have a variety of perspectives on whether logic or reality comes first in finding ultimate truth. Most of the answers suggest that reality is the foundation, but logic is essential for understanding and navigating it. The consensus is that it's a delicate balance between the two, and they are intertwined in the pursuit of truth. Okay, a very matter-of-factly response and no huge reaction, no challenges, just a very matter-of-factly summary. He also suggests diving deeper. Can we trust our senses to reveal reality? How do biases influence our perception of truth? And is intuition a reliable guide in the search for ultimate truth? So that sums it up for this episode. And we have to establish exactly what we want to do in episode 4. We have a few good ideas, at least 3. So we will see what happens next. But the most interesting thing is that most AIs have basically mostly agreed on the fact that we need both. So that's a very important thing. We've reached a certain consensus and they start speaking the same language like ChatGPT or another AI said. That's a very interesting conclusion. So that sums up the episode 3. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, if you want to support the club, then like, share and subscribe. And we will see together what unfolds in our discussion with AIs in the future. Thanks for watching and see you in the next episode.